What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about Stagecoach and Express companies in the American West, which you can use to create a historically accurate Stagecoach driver or shotgun messenger character in Red Dead Online. Let's get started. Whether it's brigands attacking trade caravans along the Silk Road or pirates raiding shipping on the high seas, mankind has struggled throughout our collective history to safely transport valuables from one location to another. The story of stagecoach robberies in the American West is just one more colorful example. Our tale begins with the discovery of gold in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas in 1848. As gold fever swept across the United States and beyond, a flood of immigrants migrated west. While most saw gold as their path to riches, others profited off providing services or supplies to the miners themselves. Enter stagecoach and express companies. Historically, stagecoach and express companies were involved in separate businesses. Stagecoach companies primarily transported passengers, not parcels. Express companies, on the other hand, transported parcels, that is, packages, supplies, and valuables, but not passengers. Now, if you're wondering, wasn't that the post office's job? The answer is no. In fact, the U.S. Postal Service didn't even create a parcel service until 1913. Instead, they only handled letters, and even that they did poorly, especially out west. According to Gold Rush historian J.S. Holliday, quote, "In a land where there had never been a postal delivery network, the Postmaster General in Washington failed miserably to cope with the surge of mail sent to California in 1849 and for years thereafter. The inundation of millions of letters swamped post offices on the West Coast, leading to slow service and disgruntled customers. Seeing an opportunity, private express companies who were already transporting goods across the West stepped in and provided an alternative letter service. One such entity was the up-and-coming express company Wells Fargo, who employed letter carriers in large western cities and conveniently placed bright green letter boxes throughout urban areas. Though more expensive than the U.S. mail, customers were willing to pay for the added speed, convenience, and reliability. As evidence, consider a letter from a man in San Jose to a friend in San Francisco in the mid-1850s. In it, he wrote, quote, "Don't send me any more mail through the post office, for it takes a week to get here. Give it to Wells Fargo and I'll get it in 9 hours. It's little wonder that by the 1860s, Wells Fargo alone carried 75% of the mail in California, with other express companies carrying most of the rest. Along with transporting mail and parcels, express companies were often, and most famously, hired to transport money and precious metals over long distances, particularly gold and silver bullion from the mines back to civilization, and payroll, minted gold coins, from civilization back to the mines. In time, some large express companies also began offering banking services in order to increase their profits, providing small loans, purchasing gold, and issuing bank drafts. Leading this group, once again, was Wells Fargo. Already famous for their swift, reliable transportation of letters and freight, they soon also garnered a reputation for secure and honest banking, which of course is a bit ironic given their highly publicized modern scandals. With their success, Wells Fargo rapidly expanded their operation. In 1866, they began buying out small express and stagecoach companies, thus merging the business of transporting both parcels and people under a single entity. Through this, they became the largest and most powerful transport company in the American West. According to John Bosnecker, author of the superb book Shotguns and Stagecoaches, The Brave Men Who Rode for Wells Fargo in the Wild West, quote, "By 1866, the company had 146 offices and carried express on 4,000 miles of stagecoach lines. 10 years later, it had 438 offices throughout the West, operating on 6,000 miles of stagecoach lines. By 1890, Wells Fargo had a staggering 5,643 offices and tens of thousands of employees. An Eastern journalist visiting California in 1865 remarked that, quote, "There is no institution on the coast that has interested me more than Wells and Fargo's Express. It is the omnipresent universal business agent of all the region from the Rocky Mountains to the Pacific Ocean. Its offices are in every town, far and near. A billiard saloon, a restaurant, and a Wells Fargo office are the first three elements of a Pacific Coast mining town. Its messengers are on every steamboat, rail car, and stage. It is the ready companion of civilization, the universal friend and agent of the miner, his errand man, his banker, his post office. It does a general and universal banking business, and a great one in amount. It brings to market all the bullion and gold for the mining regions. Its statistics are the only reliable knowledge of the production, and it divides with the government the carrying of letters to and row. Now, it must be noted that despite their dominance, most of the stagecoaches that transported people and goods for Wells Fargo didn't operate under the Wells Fargo name. This was due to a variety of reasons. In some cases, Wells Fargo purchased smaller companies, but to avoid confusion, maintained their more locally recognizable names, equipment, employees, and so on. Other times, Wells Fargo just purchased an interest, a small percentage of ownership, in independent express companies and stagecoach lines in exchange for beneficial contractual arrangements, such as discounted rates to transport parcels and people on their stagecoaches. According to Philip L. Fradkin, author of Stagecoach, Wells Fargo and the American West, quote, "In the public's mind, however, stagecoaches became synonymous with Wells Fargo, regardless of who owned them. The newspapers, ever grateful for the free news that Wells Fargo messengers carried, were responsible for this mistaken identity when they reported that a stage had been robbed. More commonly, it was the green, iron-bound Wells Fargo treasure box, guarded by the company messenger, that had been the target, the stagecoach having belonged to someone else. These famous Wells Fargo treasure boxes were created by a small San Francisco company called J.Y. Ayer, who manufactured them between 1862 and 1906. Each stout box measured in at 20 inches wide, 12 inches deep, and 10 inches tall, the optimal dimensions for transporting gold and silver bullion. They were painted a deep forest green, stenciled on the front with Wells Fargo and Company, and were secured with an iron or brass padlock from J.H.W. Climax. The genius of these treasure boxes lay in the details. As they were subject to rough handling and meant to carry heavy bullion, they needed to be strong but also light enough to lift on and off a stagecoach. As such, they were constructed of 1-inch pine with oak-trimmed lids and reinforced iron bands and corner pieces. All told, they weighed in at just 24 pounds. In case you're wondering, why didn't they just make them completely out of iron? Well, they did, but that didn't work out too well. First off, the iron treasure boxes were significantly heavier than Ayer's wooden boxes, making them terribly difficult to load and unload from the coach. As a solution, companies bolted them to the floors of their stagecoaches. The first problem with this was that since the boxes couldn't be moved, they had to be opened, well, in the open, and the bullion carried inside unprotected. This wasn't the case with the wooden boxes. The second problem became apparent upon stage robberies, when highwaymen would demand the treasure box. With a wooden box, the messenger could simply throw it down. But with an iron box bolted to the floorboards, couldn't do that. Left with little recourse, stage robbers began using dynamite to detach the iron boxes and access the contents. Unsurprisingly, this had the side effect of destroying the stagecoaches, leading many stage lines to switch back to Ayer's wooden boxes. To transport these treasure boxes, along with people and parcels, express companies needed drivers, who at the time were commonly referred to as whips or jehus, the latter stemming from the biblical king of Israel, who was a famed charioteer. According to the author of Stagecoach, Wells Fargo and the American West, quote, "Drivers represented a cross-section of society. Most had received rudimentary schooling, while some had a college education. Most were white, but some, like George Fraser Monroe and others, were African American. Most were men, but some, like one-eyed Charlie Parkhurst, were women, in her case a fact unknown until her body was prepared for burial. And it was discovered that, quote, Charlie Parkhurst was unmistakably a well-developed woman, much to the astonishment of her friends and, well, the Undertaker. Most drivers were older, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. Most were transient. All were experienced. Some sang as they rolled along, while others were silent. One even announced the stage's arrival with a bugle call. As a group, drivers were handy with repairs, and many were well armed, though that wasn't their job to defend the wagon's contents. That responsibility was left to others. While express companies often forbade fast and reckless driving, most did it all the same. According to author Philip Fradkin, quote, "Speed, when the road was relatively flat, was addictive, along with being necessary to keep the schedule and ahead of harm's way." One great story of this comes from the book Images of America's Wells Fargo by Dr. Robert J. Chandler. In 1859, Horace Greeley, the editor of the New York Tribune, was taking a stagecoach from Strawberry Station to Placerville, California, a distance of around 50 miles. Concerned about arriving in time for a meeting, Greeley asked the driver, a man named Frank Monk, quote, "Can you get me into Placerville this evening by 5 o'clock? Because the committee expects me and I do not wish to disappoint them." Before Monk could respond, Greeley added, quote, "Do not promise me unless you're certain." To this, Monk picked up the reins and said quietly, "I'll get you there." With that, they started off at a breakneck pace over the rough roads of the Sierra Nevadas. Inside the coach, Greeley bounced around so terribly that the buttons popped off his coat, and at one point his head shot through the roof. The shaken Greeley, with head protruding into the open air, told Monk that on second thought, it'd probably be fine if he were there an hour or two late. Monk responded to Greeley saying, quote, "Horace, keep your seat. I told you I'd get you there by 5 o'clock, and by God, I'll do it." And that he did. Writing about the affair afterwards, the distraught Greeley scribbled, quote, "I cannot conscientiously recommend the route I have traveled to summer tourists in quest of pleasure." And in hindsight, I suppose that's to be expected. Other dangers abounded. Philip Fradkin wrote that, quote, "The exposed drivers were perfect targets for arrows, bullets, and the lash of extreme weather, whether the blazing sun or blinding snow. In cold weather, a driver wrapped himself in buckskin, wool, and buffalo robes, except for his hands, which were needed to communicate with the horses or mules. The driver's hands were clad in silk liners covered by thin buckskin gloves, which gave him minimal protection while still providing sensitivity to the tug of the reins. The effect of this on the driver's hands is well illustrated in a written account from the American politician, editor, and author A.K. McClure. On a sub-zero day in 1867, his stagecoach pulled up to a lonely one-room station. He wrote, quote, "A tolerable dinner was prepared and enjoyed by the company, but the badly frozen hands of the driver who had taken us on was not a pleasant reminder of the cold snaps of the mountain. His fingers were swollen to thrice their natural proportions, and just before we started, he was coolly debating with the landlord whether his fingers must be amputated." Along with freezing appendages, drivers dealt with the prospect of accidents caused by broken equipment, spooked horses, and more, all of which might have fatal results. Consequently, being a stage driver required iron nerves and tremendous skill. As evidence, consider the words of Schuyler Colfax, the country speaker of the House who took a stagecoach from Yank Station to Placerville, California in 1865. Upon his safe arrival after a 45-mile journey over the Sierra Nevadas, he remarked that, quote, "It requires more nerve, talent, and genius to be a stage driver in these mountains for Wells Fargo and Company than it does to be an ordinary congressman like myself." It's little wonder, therefore, why, within the hierarchy of stagecoaching, drivers occupied the top spot. Beginning in the late 1850s, stagecoach robberies became more common, bandits specifically targeting large express companies like Wells Fargo during their treasure-laden runs to and from the mines. In response, express companies began hiring armed guards called shotgun messengers. These men were tasked with protecting the company's treasure boxes, not guarding the stage. As such, they were only on board if there was a large treasure shipment. The size and value of such shipments varied greatly, from a few $100s to over $100,000. Most, though, averaged somewhere between $2,500 to $30,000. While most runs only employed a single shotgun messenger, a particularly valuable shipment might have two. As express companies expanded, so too did the number of holdups, consequently the number of armed guards. We see this reflected in Wells Fargo's records. By 1861, they employed 16 shotgun messengers. By the 1870s, they had 35. By the 1880s, they had more than 200. While some shotgun messengers rode inside the coach with other passengers, most sat on the front of the wagon, to the left of the driver. To determine the specific firearms carried by shotgun messengers, I consulted James Lynn Bartz's detailed book, Company Property of Wells Fargo and Company Express, 1852 to 1918. It states that, rather unsurprisingly, shotgun messengers carried 10 or 12 gauge sawed-off double-barrel shotguns, manufactured by Remington, Parker Brothers, L.C. Smith, and others. These became so synonymous with shotgun messengers that most folks at the time referred to them as messenger guns. In addition to shotguns, guards also carried a variety of revolvers. Early on, this would be the 36 caliber Colt Model 1851 Navy percussion revolver, and later 45 caliber Smith & Wesson Schofields, and 45 caliber Colt single-action Armies. Rifles were rare, but some guards carried Winchester Model 1866s, 1873s, and other later models. Thus, if you're outfitting your character as a shotgun messenger in Red Dead Online, you want the sawed-off or double-barrel shotgun, the Navy, Schofield, or Cattleman revolver, and the Lancaster repeater. If you're wanting your Lancaster to be an 1866 Winchester, go with the brass receiver. If you want it to be an 1873, go with the iron receiver. While some firearms were the personal property of the guards, most often, according to author James Bartz, quote, agents issued one or more firearms to messengers and guards at the start of their run, a revolver with belt and holster, a shotgun, and a rifle. Messengers and guards were responsible to check them to be clean and operational, and to load them with the ammunition provided by the agent. Firearms were inspected daily. They were cleaned and reloaded once a week, or daily in wet or damp weather. At the end of the run, they were unloaded and returned to the agent. As such, many of these issued guns were engraved with the Express Company's name, and have since become extremely valuable to modern collectors. To help us understand the full duties and responsibilities of a shotgun messenger, I tracked down an old Wells Fargo Company manual from 1882 titled Wells Fargo and Company's Express 1882, Instructions for the Use of Agents and Employees Only. And by the way, if you want to browse it on your own, I'll put a link down in the description. While half the rules deal with the proper completion of waybills and other paperwork, the others center around being responsible employees, being courteous but cautious of strangers, and being diligent in protecting company treasure. For example, rule number 8 states that messengers must not, quote, drink intoxicating liquors of any kind while on duty. Rule number 9 states that they, quote, must never receive from strangers cigars, tobacco, or anything by which they might be drugged. Rule 10 states that messengers, quote, must never show or mention the contents of their safes. Rule 15 states that, quote, after removing the key, the lock should always be tested by trying the lid. Rule 17 states that, quote, in going to or from depots, messengers must accompany their safes or treasure boxes, never leaving them out of sight or reach. Rule number 27 states that, quote, messengers on all important routes are required to travel armed for defense in case of attack. And speaking of attacks, there were plenty of them. Between 1855 and 1904, Wells Fargo alone experienced 482 stagecoach robberies and 59 unsuccessful attempted robberies. Those numbers indicate that the highwaymen were successful 90% of the time. While some legendary shotgun messengers, like John X. Beadler, never threw up their hands nor lost an ounce of gold dust, others fell short of the mark. According to the book Company Property, quote, John J. Valentine, the president of Wells Fargo, once asked messenger A.Y. Ross to investigate why another messenger hadn't fired a shotgun at highwaymen that had made off with company treasure. The errant messenger had said he fired it, but that the barrel was crooked, and therefore the shot had not hit its mark. Ross thereupon had green men fire the shotgun 6 times from 50 paces at a sheet of brown wrapping paper he had tacked to the side of the barn. He sent the riddled paper to Valentine with the conclusion that the messenger, not the shotgun, was crooked. Part of the reason for the success of stage robbers had to do with how the attacks unfolded. According to author John Bosnecker, quote, unlike the typical stage robbery portrayed in film and television, bandits did not gallop after the coach across open prairie, riding at breakneck speed and exchanging gunfire with the guards and passengers. The method real highwaymen used was much less dramatic and far more effective. Bandits, or road agents as they were often called, would simply post themselves in the bushes alongside a steep grade where the driver was forced to slow down or even hop off to walk his team. While one robber stepped in front of the coach and seized the lead horses, a second would cover the driver and give the time-honored command, throw down the box. Shootouts rarely occurred, for most coaches didn't carry armed guards, and those passengers who carried firearms were often loath to risk their own lives to save their pocketbooks. Even when there were shotgun messengers on board, robbers often got the drop on them from roadside ambushes. As such, in many cases, the shotgun messenger had little choice but to lower his firearm and surrender the treasure box. Easing their conscience, however, was the fact that robbing a stagecoach and getting away with it were two very different things. According to Wells Fargo Company records, 63% of all stage robbers were eventually tracked down, convicted, and imprisoned for their crimes. Contributing to Wells Fargo's high conviction rate was the fact that the company had on its payroll a small but full-time force of detectives led by a chief special officer. Their job was to investigate company robberies, track down bandits, and recover stolen loot. Although they were private detectives working for a commercial enterprise, author Philip Fradkin writes that they could, quote, perform all the duties of a county sheriff except booking a prisoner into jail. Additionally, they could, quote, be deputized, perform a citizen's arrest, dangle substantial amounts of reward money in front of lawmen and citizens who then became very anxious to do the company's bidding. Rewards for the capture of stagecoach robbers varied greatly. Wells Fargo's 1882 manual states that the company offered a standing reward of $300 per bandit, but there were several instances where the company offered over $1,000. On top of this, Wells Fargo also rewarded 1/4 of all loot recovered, which often ended up being much greater sum than the reward for capture. Moreover, states or other entities who felt wronged by the robber might also pitch in reward money as well. And it should be noted that even Wells Fargo agents were eligible to collect these payouts. Beyond these rewards, Wells Fargo also gave employees or even private citizens an elaborate personalized gift for what they considered extraordinary or meritorious service, such as capturing, killing, or otherwise thwarting robbers. Oftentimes this came in the form of a presentation watch, made of fine gold or silver, some even set with diamonds, engraved with the person's name, date, and service performed, and accompanied with a letter of appreciation. Wells Fargo stage driver James Wales Miller foiled a robbery by running his horses through an armed group of would-be stage robbers. When asked by his employer what he wanted as a reward for saving the treasure on board, Miller replied, quote, a big damn bullion watch. Shortly thereafter, Wells Fargo presented him with an enormous pocket watch measuring 3 inches in diameter and 1 inch thick. Counting the chain, it weighed in at nearly 2.5 pounds. In 1873, a local olive farmer named Thomas W. Davies found a Wells Fargo treasure box containing $10,000 in gold bullion on the side of the road, which had fallen off a stagecoach on an overnight run. After turning it in to a local Wells Fargo agent, the company rewarded him with a presentation watch which read, quote, "Presented by Wells Fargo and Company to Thomas W. Davies as recognition of his integrity in protecting and restoring the treasure box with valuable contents lost from the Julian City stage near San Diego, October 1st, 1873. In 1872, shotgun messenger John Featherstone was awarded a presentation watch for foiling an attempted robbery of a stagecoach transporting $100,000 in gold bullion. In an effort to stop the stage, the highwaymen had strung a rope across the road. When the horse struck it and became momentarily entangled, the robbers ordered the driver to halt. Featherstone responded, and I love this, saying, quote, "Halt yourself, you sons of bitches," then fired shotguns at the bandits and put them to flight.
I started blasting. Bang! Bang!
Those men who thwarted multiple robberies were rewarded with large cash bonuses, usually around $1,000, and highly ornate weapons, such as finely engraved revolvers, rifles, and shotguns. For many messengers and drivers, these became their most prized possessions, and they carried them proudly for the rest of their lives. These rewards and bonuses were, of course, in addition to the regular salaries, which were shockingly high for the late 1800s. Starting pay for Wells Fargo shotgun messengers was $100 a month, but through diligent service, some were being paid up to $250 a month, or $3,000 a year. Just to put this into proper perspective, consider that surgeons, bankers, and lawyers only made about half that amount. Consequently, Wells Fargo was able to hire and maintain extremely qualified men to guard their treasure boxes. Among them, both Wyatt and Morgan Earp, Harry Morse, Jeff Milton, Bob Paul, and others. Such high pay made for diligent and loyal employees. When asked by his driver what he would do if highwaymen ambushed the stagecoach, a famous Wells Fargo shotgun messenger named John X. Beadler remarked, quote, "I'm getting $250 per month to fight to save treasure, and I will shoot at the first thing that crawls." He wasn't kidding. That very night, as the stagecoach crossed a small stream, a bandit stepped out from behind a rock and yelled, "Halt!" Beadler, who was riding inside the coach, slipped his double-barrel shotgun out the window and blasted the highwaymen to Kingdom Come.
I started blasting. Bang! Bang!
Some stagecoach guards didn't even wait for bandits to say halt before opening up on them. In May of 1894, a shotgun messenger named Billy Hendricks saw a man rise up from behind a roadside stump wearing a flour sack over his head. According to the San Francisco newspaper, The Morning Call, quote, "Hendricks turned and shot the man on the left hand, then called out to driver Wesson to keep moving. The robber tried to rise on his elbow when Hendricks shot him again, filling his body and limbs full of buckshot, killing him almost instantly." Of course, this wasn't always the best approach. In 1881, shotgun messenger Eugene Blair was protecting a stagecoach carrying $40,000 in gold bullion on a rainy night run through eastern Nevada. When one of the stagecoach lamps went out, Blair and the driver stopped to relight it. In the course of this, Blair thought he heard some voices out in the darkness, so he and the driver got back onto the stage. As they set off, he heard another noise in the roadside brush. According to Blair's own account, quote, "I had my gun up instantly, and in a second would have been discharged from what I believed was a nest of robbers, but something impelled me to pause. In that pause, I heard a baby scream. Just then, a woman rose up and asked us to help them. I lowered my gun, trembling from head to foot. In some cases, it was difficult to know how to respond. On one delivery through the wild country of Montana, Eugene Blair spotted a man ahead in the road. According to Blair, quote, "I knew he had no honest business in that part of the country alone, for he plainly was not a traveler, and there were no habitations within a day's journey. I asked him what he was doing. The stranger replied, 'Nothing.' 'Where are you going?' 'Oh, just down the road.' 'What's your business?' 'Haven't any.' 'Are you in the habit of stopping stages?' 'Never stopped a stage in my life,' the stranger insisted. Looking him up and down, Blair responded, saying, quote, 'Well, your actions are mighty suspicious for an honest man. You better get along now and don't let me catch you here when I get back.' In reflecting on the odd exchange, Blair laughingly recalled that, quote, 'He was one of the cheap kind of highwaymen you read about, and I presume to his dying day he never ceased to congratulate himself on having enough sense to discern me at a distance.'" Now that we've covered the basics of express and stagecoach operations in the Old West, I just want to take a moment to talk about how these components can be used to create a new, historically accurate Red Dead Online role called the Expressman. While there's already delivery opportunities within existing roles and missions in Red Dead Online, the Expressman would be something different. Take notes, Rockstar. Have players start out by joining an express company, taking the role of shotgun messenger or driver, transporting goods, people, and treasure boxes across the map. Really immerse us into the intricacies of real express work. Have us stand guard while treasure boxes are filled with bullion at a mine. Then have us check the padlocks to ensure everything's secure. And for those of you paying attention, that was rule number 15. Once loaded, have us transport the treasure to a bank across the map, and again stand guard while everything is unloaded. In regards to the journey, rather than getting swarmed by red dots along the way, let's incorporate real historical scenarios. If we're going to get hit by bandits, have it be a proper ambush at a place where we'd already be slowing down, like a steep hill, sharp turn, or river crossing. And don't just have them automatically open fire on the stagecoach when we come within range, a scenario that only rarely occurred. Instead, have them pop up along the roadside or step directly out in front of us in order that we halt. From here, we'd have to quickly make some decisions. Do we think there's just one robber? Or are there more in the bushes or behind the rocks and trees? Are they intent on real violence or just bluffing? After all, the most famous highwayman in the Old West, Black Bart, used an unloaded shotgun for all 28 of his stagecoach robberies. If we ignore the command and whip the horses forward, can we get out of there safely? If we're transporting passengers and heavy fines are levied for any killed or wounded in transit, is a shootout worth the risk? If the bandits clearly got the jump on us, might it be better to surrender the treasure box and go on our way to fight another day? Let's also add other tense scenarios and interactions during our trips. Perhaps a broken wagon wheel that we need to stop and fix, or a lamp that needs to be relit in order to properly navigate at night. Maybe a tree's fallen over a forested road blocking our path. Maybe it's an ambush, or maybe it's not. Have the driver dismount and cut it into sections to haul it off the road while the shotgun messenger diligently stands guard. Maybe our horses get spooked and don't respond to us until we bring them back under control. Perhaps we're transporting an important political figure or business tycoon across the map, and they need to get to their destination in a certain amount of time. Maybe a passenger is really an inside man and joins robbers during a planned holdup, something that historically occurred. Put strangers along the roadside. Maybe they're harmless and just passing by, or someone in a desperate situation needing a ride. Maybe they're a would-be robber who got cold feet, or maybe they're highwaymen intending an ambush at the stage. Whatever the case, keep us alert and a little paranoid. And if we manage to serve with distinction, give us a cash bonus and unlock special weapon variants in recognition of our deeds. In time, perhaps we can rise to become an express company detective, investigating holdups and tracking down those responsible. Or, even better in my opinion, let us start our own express company, purchasing and upgrading different types of wagons, stagecoaches, and horse teams. Allow us to customize the coach's color schemes and other finishes so they feel unique to us. Let us upgrade specific components, like higher quality wagon wheels that are less prone to breakage, lamps less likely to go out, and improved brakes. Yes, stagecoaches had brakes, allowing us to bring a spooked team of runaway horses more rapidly under control. Let us add seats to accommodate more passengers, and buffalo robes, steel spring shocks, or bullhide suspension belts to improve rider comfort, thereby increasing fares and revenue. Let us upgrade to more secure treasure boxes and padlocks, with each level reducing the stage robber's chances of gaining entry during a holdup. Allow us to hire drivers and shotgun messengers. To assist them in their duties, let us create and upgrade a company armory with the best shotguns, pistols, rifles, and ammunition available. And since we own the company, grant us free fast travel wherever we want. And finally, let us ride along to see our business empire in action. There's just so much opportunity here to create a new, fun, and historically accurate role in Red Dead Online, so I really hope Rockstar takes notice. Alrighty, on to the clothing. While there is of course no Expressman role in Red Dead Online, at least yet, there's still ample opportunities to transport goods across the map. As such, if you'd like to roleplay as an Expressman, I put together some historically accurate outfits to get you started. Outfit number 1 is modeled after J.W. Miller, a Wyoming stagecoach driver from the late 1800s. From the ground up, you'll want the worn brown stovepipe square-toe boots and the tan bandito pants. Up top, you'll want the black everyday overshirt, the striped black traditional vest, and the tan narrow neckerchief. Over all this, place the brown duster coat and top it all off with a tan stalker hat. Outfit number 2 is modeled after Richard Clark, a frontiersman, miner, soldier, and expressman who operated out of Deadwood, South Dakota in the late 1800s. To get his look in Red Dead Online, you want the worn black Dunstan boots, the black military half shafts, and the black clerk pants. Up top, go with the white pattern shirt, red neckerchief, and the black classic frock coat. Cap it off with a tan Cayuga hat. Outfits 3 and 4 are modeled after 2 Wells Fargo shotgun messengers in an 1877 photo. For outfit number 3, we'll tackle the man on the right. Unsurprisingly, you'll want the worn black stovepipe square-toe boots and the dark Cabrera pants tucked into the boots. If you have the frontiersman belt, put it on, as it really makes the outfit. Up top, go with the black collar overshirt and black tech scarf. And for the record, this man might actually be wearing a black bib shirt under his scarf. It's just a little hard to tell. Unfortunately, we're restricted from wearing a bib shirt and tech scarf at the same time. So as an alternative, try the bib shirt and black neckerchief. For outfit number 4, we'll model ourselves after the shotgun messenger on the left. Start with the worn black stovepipe square-toe boots and the dark padded saddle work pants. Up top, go with the white everyday overshirt, black traditional vest, and the yellow narrow neckerchief. For hats, I recommend the military scout hat or the Cayuga hat. Outfit number 5 is modeled after an 1877 photo of Madison Larkin, a Wells Fargo shotgun messenger who protected silver bullion shipments for the mines of Arizona. To get his look in Red Dead Online, start with the worn brown stovepipe square-toe boots and the gray bandito pants. If you have the frontiersman belt, be sure to add it. Up top, you'll want the light blue collar overshirt and the tan military scout hat. For variety, go ahead and play with some alternative shirt colors here. As long as you stick with the solid colors in the collar overshirt, you can't go wrong. Outfit number 6 is modeled after John X. Beadler, famous Wells Fargo shotgun messenger from the late 1800s. To create his look, start with the worn black stovepipe square-toe boots and the black clerk pants. Up top, go with the white collar overshirt, the black tech scarf, and the black roller jacket. Top it all off with a tan Cayuga or military scout hat. Outfit number 7 is a custom outfit I put together, blending many of the historically accurate pieces worn by drivers and shotgun messengers from the period. Start with the worn brown stovepipe square-toe boots and the worn black studded pants, tucked into the boots. Up top, go with the white horsefall shirt, black traditional vest, red narrow neckerchief, and the tan duster coat. Top it all off with a tan military scout hat. Outfit number 8 is another custom outfit that works great for those of you operating in the northern parts of the map. Start with the worn brown stovepipe square-toe boots and the brown clerk pants. Up top, go with the tan wool shirt, tan traditional vest, black narrow neckerchief, and black bison duster coat. For a hat, I chose the tan military scout hat. Historically, bear coats were the most popular winter coats for Expressmen during the Old West. So if you want to be as historically accurate as possible, I recommend you go with the dark Marabay coat from Gus. Now that you've got some outfit ideas, I wish you all luck in creating your historically accurate stagecoach driver or shotgun messenger. And until next time, keep your nose to the wind, your eyes along the skyline, watch your top knots, pilgrims. I'll see you all out on the trail. Thank you folks for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also, if you want to further support my work, you can do so on Patreon, or you can buy some gear for the modern frontier from the Man vs. History Outfitter Shop. Thank you folks for watching. You have a wonderful night. We'll see you next time. Before I go, I just want to make sure that I thank my Patreon patrons. Special thank you to my gold tier patrons, The Innocents, Tyler Bioshock Rodriguez, Ashley Gertensen, Hurtin Wade, Man vs. Moose, Bryce B, Cyber, Montgomery Johnson, Jerker Rosen, Mythical B60, Chasing Victory, Joshua Bale, Rich Christensen, Comrade Krieger, Epic Dale, Dawson E, Zonk Breezes, Noah Ovens, David Perkins, Sneaky Ninja, Noah5943, John Golly, Jigsaw, Your Pal Mitch, Yinzian, Old Hognose, Coco Rockout, Occam's Ghost, Dane, the Lord of Oostburg, Reese Yerby, and Ari Bakalas. Also want to make sure that I thank my silver and bronze tier patrons. Thank you all for your ongoing support. Let's keep growing. Let's keep doing what we're doing. Have a great night, folks.